This is My Kind of Weird, a podcast where two people swap and pitch three types of media: something watchable, something readable, and something listenable, to see if each person at the end of the pod says, "That's my kind of weird." I'm your host, Anthony, and joining me today is author Elle Nash. Elle, how are you going today?
I'm good. Just waking up, basking in the Glasgow weather, which is very gray. It's rainy. It's perfect. So it's 10 a.m. and I haven't seen the sun yet. So, which is nice.
You're our first occurrence where someone who has been pitched about is now appearing on the show. So you're the first guinea pig.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. I know. I saw myself like tagged in the post and I was like, oh, this is cool. So it's exciting. It's nice to be here.
Great, great. All right. So, Elle, are you ready to get weird with me?
100%. Let's do it.
Okay. So present your something watchable.
All right. My something watchable is this found footage horror movie called The Outwaters. And I'm like a found footage fan. I'm also like a horror movie fan. I could probably watch like 2 or 3 horror movies. I haven't done that lately, but I'm like tend to get in these things where I will just like watch everything. And
Mhm.
so, like when you are into like really weird things, it's hard for something to surprise you. You know what I mean? Especially if like you watch a lot
Yeah.
of horror, you're like, something that this really scares you is like so rare. And so I was like, I was browsing on Amazon and I just saw this film and it had like a really low star rating. And I was like, that's curious. To me, that always means like something's divisive, which makes it like
Yeah.
even better. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Sorry,
Yeah.
how cute. I'm looking
I
this
have
up.
so many low rated films that I count as my favorites.
Yeah, yeah. And so I was like, all right, I'm in. I don't know anything about this. I love going in blind to movies. I saw it was found footage. I was like, I'm down. I'm down to watch anything found footage just to see what it's like. And this movie, like, blew my fucking mind. Like, it changed for me. You know when you, like, see something and you're like, "This changes, like, the genre for me." You know what I mean? It was absolutely, like, transformational. The story itself was, like, I mean, it's so hard to describe. Okay, so imagine, like the horror of going camping, like, in the desert, which you will get this because you live in Australia, like, this vast, like, nothingness full of, like, fear and, like, darkness when you go camping, like, it's dark, right?
Yeah.
And this movie, like, replicates so well, like, the emotional and, like, physical experience of what it would be like to encounter, like, some unknowable, almost cosmic horror-y threat. Like, the closer you get to it, the more mad you get, and it's really subtle. It's not done on purpose. Like, I don't think it's, intentionally, like, Lovecraftian. I just think that horror, like, unknowable horror, like, just feels this way to humans, and it really
Mhm.
replicates the experience so well. Like, I was shaken, I was just like I became
Oh,
obsessed with this. Yeah. So wild, really good. The script writing is, like, so tight. I was super impressed with it as an avid consumer, like, of too much horror. Um, Weird as shit and disturbing, but good. Like, I don't know, there were, like, moments of wonder in it, which, like, you don't really get, right, with horror. So that's my something watchable. Yeah.
given what I've read of Deliver Me so far, and given you saying it's extremely weird, it's definitely something I'm going to have to put on my to watch list for sure. So my something watchable is Gen V. So Gen V is. Have you watched Gen V?
I have not. I watched a little bit of The Boys. I'm not a super huge superhero fan, but I like Eric Kripke because I loved Supernatural, so I
Okay.
saw that
Yep.
he was working on that. Yeah, yeah.
Mm, mm. So I mean, I kind of have always been a big superhero fan, but I think what Marvel has done with the just relentless oversaturation has just kind of just gotten me to the point where I've just tapped out. And anything that sort of subverts the superheroes genre or pokes fun at it is always fun. What I've seen of Gen V so far, so it's set in the same universe as the boys. It's the sort of like the college that the wannabe superheroes are going to, and it's an interesting take on that genre because you would assume that it'd be, all sunshine and rainbows with like a college and kids that are, with like a coming of age story. But this one is really not, because the two main it has a lot to say narrative wise. There's the narrative of kind of what influences are doing to this society as a whole, everyone, what popularity and the need to be popular is doing to not just society as a whole, but there's a deliberate narrative about what it's doing to women, which I find quite
Mm,
interesting because it seems to be more that whenever there's a narrative about influences and the need to be popular and what that's doing, it seems to be just about the society as a whole, men, women, and sort of non-binary people. But this one is specifically, I don't know if it's targeting women, but it's definitely saying something about women which hasn't really been said before, which is good. I mean, for instance, the two main characters, one of them has this blood power, which in order to access blood, like it's in you, right? So she has to cut
mm,
herself to get the blood out to turn it
mm.
into a weapon. And then the other
Oh,
one,
weird.
yeah. And so obviously the narrative about cutting yourself, I guess the psychologically what that can do. But then there's also the her roommate has the power to miniaturize, so she has to purge in order to shrink herself to a certain size. So there's
Like
the need to
like throw
throw
up
up.
purge. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
wow.
yeah. So
That
it's
does sound subversive because there's, like, a price, like, there's commentary on, like,
to be
there's a
paid.
price for this in a way, or essentially, like, what are they willing to do to be able to, like, what are you willing to do to achieve this? Which I'm
Exactly,
very familiar with
exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that in itself, I mean, I haven't been through either, but I did used to date someone who used to cut themselves, and so I'm sort of familiar with the mindset. But for them to just outwardly say that there's a price to be paid if you want to be, popular and be a superhero and be able to do all these things, then this is the price. So, and this is just in I've only seen 2 episodes, so I think that yeah, that's something definitely worth checking out.
Hmm, that seems interesting. Do you think that do you think I'll have to finish watching The Boys to be able to, like, get Gen V, or do you think that it's, like, it stands on its own?
I think it stands on its own so far. There's um there's elements of it, like it's just familiar enough that you could be either way. You could be a huge fan or you could be someone who's totally unfamiliar with it. But I would say that if you're getting into it and you're not familiar with the boys, that's
Mhm.
it's gonna fuck with you a bit. I mean, for instance, the girl who can miniaturize, she has a night with this guy who is apparently known around campus for only sleeping with girls who have miniaturization powers because he has such a small penis. And so in the the episode, you see her shrunken down to like an inch. She's jumping on his balls. So
Wow. Wait, is this like it's like so it's on Amazon, so they're just like, "We don't
yeah,
care about, like, the censors or anything."
no, yeah. You definitely see a small woman jumping on his dick and balls. So that's yeah.
Amazing.
in
That's
full view.
that's definitely someone's fantasy. I'm sure of it.
Mm. All right, Elle, present your something readable.
So the something readable that I am going to present is Wetlands by Charlotte Roche. She's a German author, I believe. And
Okay.
how to explain this book? So the narrator is like an 18-year-old girl. And the juxtaposition of this book is very clever because it's really disgusting. Essentially, like, um, she I'm pretty sure she was, like, doing something. I'm trying to remember it because 'cause it's been a while since I read it. She was doing something to her ass, and it was, like, sexual, and she has to go to, like, the hospital to get it fixed, but she's so obsessed with, like, I don't know, it describes so many, like, gross things in visceral detail, um, because she's, like, obsessed with sex, but in this very unusual way that the juxtaposition of her being, like, 18 and young is very clever, because most of the stuff that you would read in it, you like, for me, I'm like, I cringed a bit, like, that's the same thing, like, with apparently, like, my barometer for, like, what I like to read or whatever is, does this make me viscerally, like, uncomfortable? Um,
Yeah, it's either low
but,
or
like,
high,
which
depending which way you look
yeah,
at it.
yeah. But it was so clever because, like, I think there's this societal idea that, like, a young 18-year-old woman is, like, hot, right? Like, in porn or whatever. They're just like, "Oh, this is, like,
Mm.
teen," or something, you know what I mean? And the fact that it's juxtaposed with all of these, like, really viscerally, like, disgusting descriptions, like, she talks about, like, boogers and, like, body excrement and all these things that wouldn't that you would find yourself maybe, like, recoiling at in this way, which is what makes it, like, I don't know. I just felt like it was very clever, and the the timeline of her being in the hospital and having to she's, like, coming down to having surgery, but she's also just, like, obsessed with wanting to be loved and, like, wanting her parents to get back together because they're, like, divorced. So there's, like, this other human
Mm.
element of it where it's, like, it's not just, like, here's this gross book. It's, like, this woman who, she's obviously, like, trying to find, I guess, some way to feel close to other people, in my opinion. Like, she becomes obsessed with, like, a nurse that comes into her room, and so she starts doing things to harm herself to keep, like, the nurse around, and it hits this, like, fever pitch where
Wow.
I'm reading it, and yeah, and I'm like, "Oh my god," like, I just don't know, like, I was like, "Can I get through this?" You know what I mean? Like, while reading it. It's very rare that I feel that way, like, about a novel, and, it's the detail, like, the viscerality of it is so good, and obviously, like, only having read the English translation of it, it makes me wonder, like, what is it like to read, like, the original, you know?
Yeah, because
Which
something always gets
y
lost in translation, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. So I don't know, I would definitely recommend that. Um, it also, like, for anyone, I guess, who, like, comes to literary fiction or something like that, it's interesting because for me, it would expand my idea of, like, what a novel, like, could be and, like, could contain, like, the kind of world that you can take someone through just through, like, establishing a sense of authority about the narrator, which I think it does, like, really well. So
I mean, we'll go into this when we do the interview segment of
mhm.
this podcast episode. But do you feel that well, firstly, was this read did you read it before or after you wrote Deliver Me?
I read it after most of the draft was done. The book was already coming out. I was just doing final touches when I finally read this book. So I had done an interview with Sasha Grey and was asking her about, like, her own inspiration. She recommended that book to me, and so I was like, "All right, I'm gonna read this." And so when I finally sat down to read it,
Yeah.
I was like, "This book is fucking good." I was like, Damn, like, I and it came out in, like, 2008 or something like that, so I'd
Yeah, yeah,
never
I'm
heard of
looking
it
at
until, like,
the
she
wiki.
recommended it, but appar yeah, yeah, so I was like, "Alright."
It's an anal fissure that she
Yes.
gets. Yeah, according to the
Yes.
Wikipedia. Yeah. Um, yeah, I see now what you mean. So it seems to have this fascination with bodily fluids, which are secreted
Mhm.
or excreted. Yep,
Yeah.
sounds German
I
to me.
think I think also, like, she does, like, general gross things too, like, she becomes obsessed with, like, growing an avocado plant, I think, in her, hospital room, and the way that she even talks about, like, growing the plants and, like, collecting all of these things is, like it's so gross, but it's written, like, really well.
Oh boy, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's fuck. I actually I think it kind of reminds me of hearing you describe it. Kind of reminds me like your reaction you're getting to it reminds me of when I saw this horror movie called Teeth way back mid 2000s about this woman
Mhm.
who I don't know if you've seen it. It's this woman who, or teenager, I should say, she lives near a radioactive plant and somehow develops teeth in her vagina, which
Mhm.
she figures that she can use to her advantage if, she gets taken advantage of. So, yes, a lot of penises get bitten off in that film. So, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. I haven't seen it. Obviously, I've heard of
I
it, but
did
I
I
don't think
didn't
I
expect
watched
to
it.
talk about genitals as much in this podcast episode.
Yeah, unfortunately, that tends to happen a lot when I talk to people.
Alright, so my something readable is Red Room, The Antisocial Network by Ed Piskor. Don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's quite a well-known American cartoonist who's done stuff like the Hip Hop Family Tree, X-Men Grand Design, and Red Room is this sort of like a murder on the dark web. Sort of the catchphrase for it is murder on the dark web for fun and profit. It is a graphic novel that is just viscerally disgusting. I think viscerally is definitely the
Mhm.
main word that's going to be used in this episode, but this one really
Mhm.
is. And it sort of follows these people that pay to watch other people get murdered on the dark web, much like in a streaming situation. So there's lots of illegal acts around like degradation, carnography, all live on webcam. And when you actually read it, the art is it's just so wrong on so many different levels. There's elements of sort of like the criminality aspect, but also the sort of gorgeous art of people having their pretty much their guts kind of ripped in two. And there's also a bit of a commentary on cryptocurrency as well, in the way of how it can be used for by people who are nefarious who are on the dark web. So it's yeah, it's definitely something worth picking up.
Mm. I wonder what his personal experience with that is. It always makes me wonder. I was researching him a little bit before the show. I saw that he
Yeah,
has this podcast, not well, I guess it's a YouTube show.
yeah.
And I like comics. I like manga, like, I like Junji Ito and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
So, like,
nice.
horror manga. Yeah, yeah. So, I was checking it out, and I would definitely be interested in, yeah, in, like, seeing Red Room. So
Yeah, his perspective is interesting on his YouTube show because him and his buddy that do it, they have both worked for like in and out of the bigger sort of comic book companies, but then they've also done a lot of indie work too. So not only is it has that sort of I guess street cred, if you will, but it also has sort of that someone who's been a professional working and doing that for as long as they have and seeing their perspective on different creators who are well known. And Also, if you want to learn more about comic books, like that's a really good one to start with because it goes through the ins and outs of the art, the artistry, the lettering. They also have a lot of because they've been in the game for so long. They have a lot of insider knowledge on like stuff like they've even done ones where I don't know how they've managed to do it, but they've gotten a hold of like court transcripts, like when like there was one where Neil Gaiman took I think it was DC to court, and they actually read through the actual court transcript and sort of acted
Oh,
it out.
wow.
So it's yeah, it's really interesting.
I wonder if Ed Piskor gets any pushback for the super violent stuff that he puts out, you know what I mean? Or if, like, because I'm assuming is Red Room, like, done independently, or does it come out, like, on an official press or something like that?
So it's through
Maybe it doesn't matter.
Fantagraph.
Mm.
Well, it's through Fantagraphics, who are known for doing some pretty subversive and surreal stuff. That was sort of the first like comic book press that was independent to even touch queer comics. So they're really good for that.
Mm. Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but it was banned. It was banned in several comic book stores. It sold. It was funny. It sold out on Amazon initially, but it was
Mhm,
banned in certain comic book stores.
mhm,
So
mhm. I guess
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
that makes sense because there's, like, kids who can access it more easily or something like that. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Present your something listenable, and because of the way you explain this in our emails, I'm really curious to hear it.
Okay, so my something listenable is, like, not, like, a music thing or anything like that, which is funny. It's, um, Jody Hatton's binaural beat audio on YouTube for, like, sleep cycles and meditation. And I know I said it's weird, but, like, something about so there's so many, like, binaural beat, like, videos and stuff on YouTube, which are kind of annoying because they're full of, like, this also weird hippie music that for me is, like, just not conducive to trying to get to sleep or focus or anything like that. Um, I'm really into binaural beats as a concept because of the way that it can influence your brain waves and, like, your mental state, like, big into
Okay.
meditation and that kind of thing. And so the reason why I like this particular channel is because most of his videos are just the binaural beats. So it's
Oh,
just the beats themselves,
interesting.
there's no music or anything. And yeah, and, like, they so as a person who I do, like, guided meditations, like, 3 or 4 times a week, and then just a regular meditation at least, like, once a week, and this in particular, as someone who's consistently, like, feeling my consciousness changes, like, when I'm meditating, there's been times when I'm listening to these particular binaural beats where, like, the hertz the way that the hertz move, it changes the it's supposedly changes the brainwave pattern, like, that is going on up here. Listen to it, I feel like I can actually feel that, like, I can feel when something goes from, like, delta to, like to supposedly, like, theta in a way, or at least it's, like, moving me to, like, a deeper space. Which is like, I don't know, it's really cool
Interesting.
as a person who's very interested in yeah, in consciousness and like thinking about what those different states do. Like they've done
Yeah.
studies that show that binaural beats can help, like regular use can help reduce like depression and anxiety and like those kinds of things. They're doing preliminary studies on how being able to modulate your brainwaves through whatever technological devices we can use to like figure that out can also help like lessen depression and anxiety. And as a person who who suffers from a like mental afflictions like we all do, I am really interested in how we can be conscious of that brainwave state and even like how we can learn to control it because with practice with practice like meditation eventually becomes less of a struggle, right? Like everyone's like, oh, it's so hard, it's
Mm,
hard. It's like over time like you learn to kind of sit with discomfort and then you can also find yourself like when you're in liminal states still having some level of consciousness and being able to like direct things in your mind the way that you want. So that's why specifically I like these binaural beats because I've had that experience. There's no like weird music trying to inject like feelings or whatever into my mind. It's literally just the beats. And yeah, the experience has been really good. One time, like I was so I take Vivance like once or twice a week. I do have ADHD, but I don't like to
Okay.
take meds all the
Yep.
time. And so I was trying to use this to sleep, but obviously, like, because there's stimulants in your body, like, getting to sleep is so much harder, like,
Yeah.
physiologically, your brain is like, "I'm not sleeping right now." But even meditating, like, on this, I feel like the experience of moving from, like, one brainwave state to another was so intense. I was, like, awake through the whole process, but also not, and, like, letting my mind, like, go wherever it wanted to go, and I hit this point where I was just, like in my mind, I was like, maybe I can commune with the divine, like maybe life is beautiful. Like I had this like sense of euphoria. And so I was like, this is like fucking great, like for someone who is consistently meditating, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was also recommended just for people who who are interested in like learning more about their consciousness or like meditation. Binaural beats almost make it's like easier. It's like a tool that can help you practice, So that's my something weird. I guess that's why it is a little weird because it's like, I don't know. People would probably look at me and be like, "That's okay, sure." Like you're like you're just laying in bed thinking you can commune with the divine. That's a little weird.
I this might come down to my own ignorance, but of meditation. But you mentioned how some people comment to you that meditation can be can be hard. What is it
Mhm.
about it that makes it hard?
I think it's just oh, my light keeps turning off. I think it's just you can see how dark it is. Like this is like morning in Glasgow. I have like two lights on and it's still like so dark out. Anyway, I think what makes meditation hard is focus. Like I don't think that, especially if like you're not used to focusing. It's like a skill set. Like it's a muscle that you have to develop.
Mm,
Which is really hard for me. Focusing is really difficult. Like my brain is consistently always wanting to like do or find like other things, like finishing something all the way through, even like a 30-minute meditation, like it takes like, practice. But it's also hard because I think people have an expectation of meditation that when they sit, their brain should just already be like silent. And then if they can't do that, that they're not good at
mm.
it. But like meditation is a practice. You're not meant to be good at it. You're just simply meant to do it and observe. And so that's kind of the thing is where you're like, if you sit down to have like a meditation session and like your brain is all over the place, like that's fine. You're just observing it. Like you're observing what happens. You're gently like trying to maybe bring if you have like a goal, like a specific type of meditation you're doing, when it's like,
Mm.
count your breathing or whatever, you gently bring yourself back to that. But like there's not a need to like judge it or like judge what's happening. Like that's kind of like it's almost like defeating the purpose. It's just a do. It's not like or a try. It's not like a I'm not good at this or I can't do this or any like those are all just like illusions. Those are things that like your brain is coming up with that's resistance to building, like a habit or what have you. So I think that's what makes it hard for people is like those kinds of judgments or even almost competing with themselves, where they're like, I'm not good at this, so
Mm.
I shouldn't do it. When really like
Self-doubt.
if you just, like, sit yeah, but if you just, like, sit and you just sit and, like, let yourself observe that, you learn more about yourself, like, in that process. You just, like, accept, and, like, kind of see what happens, like weather that come you can't, like, control weather,
Mm.
you just, like, let it come and go, So I think, that's what makes it hard for people, and then probably
Maybe that's
consistency,
also
like,
the problem, like being confronted with yourself, like being confronted with the um,
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine a lot of people got confronted with self, during, COVID and things like that, and maybe it's a similar
Yeah.
sort of connection, being able to like, I've often questioned those who constantly need to be busy and need to be doing things, and I found that people like that struggle the most when it's just themselves in their own thoughts, in their own space, and maybe it's those
Mhm.
people as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's likely, like, if you have a hard time, like, sitting still, it can be hard to confront yourself. I mean, still I don't like confronting parts of myself. It's like a lifelong process. But no, it's hard, and it's hard to be, like, consistent with it, and it's also really hard to, like, be bored, for example. Like, I have had
Yeah.
meditations where I'm like I go to this, like, this Buddhist temple place where we'll sit for, like, 40 minutes sometimes, and I hit these points where my brain is literally, like, screaming at me, like, it's like, "Y I'm so bored, I'm so fucking bored, I'm bored, like, I'm really bored," and, like, it sucks, but then you kind of just, like, have to let yourself be bored, and, like, as a creative
Mhm.
for me, was what I tell my child all the time when she doesn't get YouTube is that, like, boredom's good for you. It's good for your creativity. So I just have to tell myself that too. The little six-year-old in my mind is like, "I'm bored. I'm so bored." Well, boredom
Oh,
is good for you.
with my son, I snapped at him the other day, and I'm just kind of like, "You have it so lucky, kid." Like on the weekends, all we had was car racing and golf, like on on TV. That's all you had. And he's like,
Mhm, mhm,
"What are you talking about?" Classic old dad moment.
mhm. Right, right. What do you mean there were channels and you could only watch what was, like,
Yeah,
broadcasted?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's
I
that
feel
instant
that.
gratification thing that's a constant struggle in the parenting
Mhm,
journey.
mhm, mhm.
Getting back to what you said before, though, I did have like when I was 15, I was hugely into the band Tool and everything
Mhm,
that they did, like side projects that they did, even sort of like the sort of, I guess you could say, like meditative angles that they went down with their music. Hypnagogic regression was one as well. That idea that if you try to meditate or pull yourself into your own thoughts, the moment when you feel like you're about to fall asleep, and then you
mhm.
start to meditate instantly at that moment, you stop yourself, and then you get down on the floor and meditate. Oh boy, the loopy shit I saw then.
Mhm.
And apparently it's a known thing like that. That's what can apparently that's what can expand your subconscious. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think so in the sense that, like, one thing I've heard see, I don't know, like, the science behind it, so I'll just, like, talk out of my ass and people can tell me, like, if I'm wrong or not. One thing I've heard about that particular thing with, like, hypnagogic meditation or, like, self-hypnosis when you're, like, in those
mm,
deep, like, brainwave states is that your brain, like, the neural pathways that you're building don't necessarily fully know the difference between, like, the waking life and what you're experiencing in that meditation at that moment. And so, like, that area is so, like, rich for right, expanding your subconscious or, like, practicing developing, like, a new belief system, like, about yourself, trying to overcome or integrate things that you, like, fear or you know what I mean? Like, teaching yourself how to, like,
mhm,
build boundaries, overcome, like, maybe particular kinds of things that have been hard for you, like, in the past or something. Like, I've definitely used meditation to those ends where it's your neural pathways developing this, like, movie right before its eyes, right?
yep.
And through that process of, like, continuing to do it, those pathways those pathways slowly get stronger and stronger and stronger. And so I do feel like I don't know, I feel like it's, yeah, it's really rich kind of tool for, like, self-analysis or self-reflection if
Mhm.
people are, like, into that, you know? Like, sometimes I'm like, I hate the concept of self-work. I think it's sometimes it just seems like so I'm just, like, annoyed by it where I'm just like, I'm tired of working on myself. But at the same
I'm
time,
a
the
work
thing
in
that's really
progress.
I know. But the thing that's really beautiful about, like, that realm, like, the meditation
Mm,
part of it or, like, right, like, that hypnagogic state is that there's no actual conscious effort, like, it's subconscious. You are literally just, like, sitting down and, like, in your mind, you're guiding yourself. And it's for me, my personal experience is that it's always been stronger than like therapy for me, even though therapy is great, simply because it's just me in there. And so I don't have to worry about the expectations of other people. I only have to worry about like confronting
Mhm.
myself and working with myself. You know what I mean? So that's my something weird
Sometimes it can
to
be
listen to.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do the verdicts then. So Elle, out of everything I pitched you, was anything you're kind of weird?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look at the Red Room, and Ed Piskor's work more. I'm gonna see if I can, like, find a copy of that somewhere on Amazon or something like that to check it out. I really like that. I might watch Gen V, but I'm really bad at TV in general, but it's good to know, like Eric Kripke, it's good to know it's a little subversive. It would be something that I would, like, put on a watch list and then think about watching. So
Oh wow.
What?
I'll put on a
I'm like, "I'll
list
think
and
about
then
it."
think about watching it.
Oh,
Wow.
and then I think the other thing though that you mentioned was, the Nine Inch Nails album, which, like, it's definitely my jam,
Oh yeah, I
definitely,
haven't
like
even done that.
yeah,
Oh god. Yeah, yeah. So let's go back to that then.
mhm.
My something listenable, as Ella's spoiled everyone with, is Nine Inch
Sorry.
Nails, the Downward Spiral. No, no, I can't believe I skipped to that. So, if you haven't heard of this album, dear listener, or yourself, Elle, I'd be very
Mhm.
surprised. So, um, Downward Spiral is sort of, I feel like it's that first moment that I remember anything that was that became such a staple in pop culture on the mainstream that sort of combined the idea of pop music and what pop music can be, and and how industrial rock could be pop music, but at the same time, it also represented sort of this. It was a concept album, right? So it's about the sort of the self destruction of sort of a man and going down his own sort of downward spiral. And I say man as not really as a gender term, but I guess as anyone who is a human. It For me, there was always sort of this air of mythos about it. I think mainly because it was recorded in that in the Tate House. It was recorded where, sort of the Manson family had killed Sharon Tate and all those other people at her party. So
Mhm.
it influences, around like Pink Floyd is obviously quite present, and David Bowie is often quite present, and yeah, just that mix of different techno and metal, and like even sort of there's like this like ambiance to it. So my something listenable.
I didn't know all of that about that specific
What I
album.
found, the my kinds of weird that I liked of yours, definitely the book. Um,
Oh, no, I think that he lost connection or I lost connection? I'm not sure. We shall see. What's up? You're back.
That was fun.
I was like, I'm the only one in the show. This is way too much pressure for me.
Way too much
I'm
pressure.
not made to be a host. No, that's funny.
Yeah. So, what's going on? Yeah, this is what happens when you record in a hotel room.
Oh no. I have been there for sure. Um, I was saying that I did not know all of that about the Nine Inch Nails album.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
experience of it was just being
yeah. All
like
right. So,
a sad teenager.
so let's. Yeah, I don't know what's. Yeah, it just keeps glitching out. So sorry about that. So, um, and so let's talk about Deliver Me as much as this internet connection is going to let us talk about it.
Mhm.
I think you've frozen.
I'm good. Can you I don't know if I've frozen. Maybe just for you. Who knows?
You good? Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe let's just rely on audio then.
Okay. All right, here.
Oh
I'll
man,
stop
we're
my
trying to
cam.
record a.
Can you hear me?
You. So let's talk about your book Deliver Me. So
Mhm.
when I like I guess the struggle that Dee Dee has with her mum, I found quite interesting throughout throughout most of the book, to be honest. Granted, I'm only halfway through, but I sort of got this feeling that there's a intense familiarity that you had with or have with Christianity as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. Like I my dad was very obsessed with Jesus while I was growing up. Like I've seen like every Left Behind movie. Over Christmas, he always wanted to watch like every single Jesus movie that was ever made. And then I spent a lot of my adolescence in a town called Colorado Springs, which has
Oh
like
wow.
5 military bases. Yeah, and like 600 churches. It's the home of like Focus on the Family and that sort of thing. So I did have a lot of experience with it growing up. And then when I lived in Arkansas for a time, I had a lot more exposure to like particular Pentecostal strains of Christianity.
Mm,
But in general, it's always kind of fascinated me too. Like when I decided when I was a teenager that I didn't believe in God anymore, my dad was upset, but no one ever forced me into anything after that, which I think was really lucky for me because some people don't have that experience. But I just kind of developed like such a strong distaste for American Christianity that for me, like, if I'm gonna hate something, I have to know why I hate it, like, I have to research it, so like, I do have, like, an interest in, like, the religion itself, I would, like, read the Bible, try to understand, like, why different sects believe what they believe, and that sort of thing, like, I've always kind of had, like, a lifelong interest in, like, organized religion as a whole, and even, like, from
mm,
an anthropological perspective in terms of, like, why the human mind is like drawn to ritual and worship. It seems almost like a naturally like emergent behavior. And like obviously like with consciousness and how that interplays with like what a religious experience is like, all that's always been really fascinating to me. So
You were saying that's always fascinating.
Yeah, it's always been really fascinating to me. Just yeah, I don't know. And I don't necessarily know why. I mean, I am interested in why people do what they do and like what drives them to have the beliefs that they have. So I guess like maybe just as like a writer, like I'm interested in that part of like human psychology, you know.
Mm.
But yeah. Can you hear me or did I freeze?
Gotcha. Yeah. Um, I might actually kill my cam for a moment, because I think
Okay.
that's actually screwing with our chat a little bit. Um,
Mhm.
let's where did the sort of the inspiration for the um where the inspiration for the book come from? Was it sort of that because there's lots of different layers to it. There's obviously a borderline obsession she has with Sloane, but I guess the layer of um the need and want to be a mother, and then the need to be loved by daddy, but also to satisfy his own wants and desires. So, was I guess what I'm asking is, was the plan with the book to always have those different layers, or was there was it something that just sort of happened organically as you first started, planning out the the novel as a whole?
Well, yeah, I always knew like where the book was going to end. Like that was like kind of my starting point was always having like the final scenes in my mind and I didn't exactly know how I was going to get there. So a lot of I think a lot of the relationship stuff felt like it just kind of came through as I was writing because I was like how do I get from point A to point B? And then with every successive draft, I think I went through like 7 drafts of this. The relationship stuff just got like deeper and deeper. And I was trying to work to create more tension and illustrate how a person like this might like function in society and like how the people around her might respond because it's based on, like, a very fringe crime that does happen. I think there's only, like, 35 or 36 recorded
Yeah.
cases of it, like, yeah, happening in the world, and, um, I guess I was just interested, like, in terms of the real world, it's like, how could, like, a society or the community or the immediate people around, this person, like, fail her so much? How could she kind of like live in her own delusion for this long and like nobody notice? And so I guess those relationship patterns just sort of like emerged through trying to explore what that is or could look like.
Mm, yeah. I found you were talking about the book that you pitched, and I found the insect scene an interesting one to add. Um, um, what deep recess of your mind?
I lost like half your question. The last thing I heard was what deep recess of your mind.
Do you want me to repeat that?
Yes, please, if you could.
Yeah. Where did you get the idea for the insect scene?
Oh, that, everyone always asks me this, and my only answer is just that I
Bugs
have
you
spent
about that?
way too much I have spent way too much time on the asshole of the internet, and just shit is in my mind. It just fills my brain space for some reason. And when I was writing this, I
Yeah.
think, like, my agent or a friend was just like, "You turn this up to 11," and so it was just like, "Okay, okay." I don't know.
Fair enough. I haven't finished the book yet, but I I have this feeling that um she I don't
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you. Can you
you
repeat
want me
that?
to
Are
try
you
that
there?
one again?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm still with. Yep. Um don't know why it was working so well up until now, but anyway. Um uh so I have a feeling that because I haven't finished the book, but I have this feeling that that there's going to be a murder towards the end. And I'm feeling that Sloane is going to cop the murder. Is that fair to say?
I think you should read the book. I can't say. There are people listening to this who probably still haven't read it yet.
No, I'm about halfway through. Yeah, there's yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, I probably should finish the book. Um there's not enough pictures in it though.
There's
um
there's
uh
bumblebees. There's bumblebees in there. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure I'm
yeah,
pretty sure there's also a
yeah,
picture of a baby
yeah.
somewhere.
Mm. Great. That'll help. So with Sloane, is she based on any because I guess what I'm getting to is the relationship between Sloane and Dee Dee. Um it there's lots of innate detail to it. Um so much that I feel like it might have been based on either a friend in your life or someone that you've sort of I guess viewed from afar. um is that I mean is Sloane based on anyone you know or
I don't know if I would say that. I would say, like, Sloane is based on if anyone has ever had, like, a desire for a person who, like, fucking hated them, they probably understand that unique kind of pain. And mostly, like, I think in like, in high school, it's more common, hopefully, or, like, your early 20s or
yeah.
something. Um, but, like that kind of experience is, like, very I guess based on that where there's, like, this insecure, like, attachment. Oh, no, sorry, I'm using therapy language. I hate using therapy language to describe fiction. But, like, there's, like, this sense that she, she can't have this thing that she wants, and she's trying very hard for, like, this person's approval. Like,
Yeah.
that's a universal experience, and so I would say it's based on my observation of, the human tendency to, like, cling. And, sure, I would say, like, of having crushes or something, I've envisioned, like as writing, I've envisioned Sloane, like, trying to think, like, what would I do, like, if I had a crush, like, on a person like this, and she treated me this way, and I was, like, Daisy, like, if I was, like, this person. Like, I think I just spent a lot of time trying to think about what that feels like, which isn't very hard because, you know, like I think that's, you know, wanting something or wanting a person who doesn't want you, like that unrequited feeling is, you know, it's pretty, I think it's pretty common. It's easy to extrapolate like an experience you might have had into something that is also like, you know, completely fictional. So,
Because there's at times that and it could be just because of the your own descriptors that you use to describe Sloane. She seems more like a force, if that makes sense. A yeah, that something that, or at least there's elements to her personality that Dee Dee wants and desires and sees her own shortcomings in that. Um, that's what I got from it anyway.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, it's like Sloane is like the cool girl, like, in high school, right? Like, she's effortlessly cool, it seems. Like, from the
Yeah.
outside, a cool girl like that knows really how to dress and, like, how to interact with, like, boys and even girls, you know? You know, she's got, like, the right look and, like, the right taste in music and, you know, seems, like, ethereal and almost enigmatic. Like, she definitely has, like, that kind of flavor to her, you know what I mean? And then for Daisy, it's like,
Mm,
you
yeah.
know, I think, like, when you grow up, like, out of high school and that kind of thing, you kind of realize that the cool girl is also riddled with like her own anxieties and self-doubt and like all of those kinds of things, and maybe Daisy is just like that kind of representation of all of those like insecurities, but like splayed on the outside, you know, like that stuff like never goes away for her and she kind of never outgrows it. That's partly why too, you know, she has this tattoo novel, The Ugly Duckling, in a way. It's like this sense of like, when is this transformation going to happen for me, is kind of like her feeling,
Mm,
but she goes through her whole life feeling like that. Like, she's 30s and she's still feeling like, I'm the ugly duckling. Like, when do I get to be the swan? When do I get to like possess and love the swan? When does the swan like get to love me? And so that's kind of, I guess, how I view that, like those two in a way.
it's almost like a parasocial relationship she has with her. Was that on purpose?
Um, I mean, I don't know if it's potentially parasocial because they do still have, like, a relationship that they've developed, but I think Sloane definitely, like, you know, there's parts in the book where it's very obvious she's kind of using Daisy to her own ends without being very considerate about her feelings and, like, what that's going to do, specifically, like, as a teenager, which, you know, it kind of makes sense because teenagers can be, you know, can be cruel to each other, and so I don't know if I would call it parasocial, because parasocial is more like when you don't have a relationship with that person, right? But, like, you think that you
Mm.
do based on, like, those interactions. Is that how you would define parasocial? I'm, like, not 100% clear on, like, how that is term
Yeah,
is, like,
well,
defined.
I guess there seems to be these different sides to Daisy's character. I mean, there's the side that she sort of shows Sloane, but then there's also the side that sort of wants and desires what Sloane has. So I guess that if someone could have a parasocial split personality almost, if you know what I mean. But then it could just be a
Mm.
obsession and I'm using the wrong term. But uh yeah, I guess I just I found the obsession part that it seemed to go an extra level, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
There's obsession and then there's what you've presented in Deliver Me with their
Yeah.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
like an
yeah.
extra level. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I am exploring the obsession on that level. A big part of like my desire was trying to represent like what obsession looks like when it does go like, for, too far. Like, there's a level of obsession that people tend to naturally have with, even just crushes or what have you. But at some
Mm.
point, like, her thoughts become more impulsivity actually starts to form, like, her decisions that she's making in the real world. Like, it leaves her mind and starts going to the real world. And I was interested in this specifically because of, like, thinking about, like, serial killers and psychopaths and stuff like that. Like, they are driven by these levels of obsession, but then at some point these obsessive thoughts become, like, compulsive, impulsive thoughts, and then they start translating into the real world in these, like, really antisocial and, like, dangerous ways. And they start doing that by, like, breaking boundary, like, seeing how far, like, they can push these boundaries around them, like, before, they get caught. And that type of thing is always interesting because it's like, well, at what point does a person's obsession become, like, that kind of damaging, both to them and, like, society, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you've done quite well is you're talking about serial killers, and I guess there's the different steps that I guess serial killers go through. There's obviously there's sort of at the start there's the killing of like an animal, and then they sort of devolve into either someone who might break into a house, or then they might kill someone or rape someone, and then it goes that extra level. They're then trying to sort of discover who they are through those sort of heinous acts.
mhm.
That's what
Yeah,
this
yeah.
has in I feel like that's what you've done really well in terms of the pacing with this book. In terms of her Daisy's gradually devolving into what she either wants to be, or through her own actions, what she ends up being.
Yeah, it's almost like she kind of can't help it, like, in the sense that she has agency, but there's also the invisible hand of her obsession is kind of guiding her, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, yeah.
Are we meant to hate Daddy?
Everyone asks that, and I feel like it should be up to the reader to decide how they feel. It should be up to the reader, I mean, that's why I try to write my characters without this impending sense of judgment, because I want people to, like, kind of figure it out for themselves. I don't like telling people, like, how to feel about something, I just kind of want to, like, present these characters as they are, and let people draw their own conclusions.
Now, you obviously had a great review through Publishers Weekly, but as someone who's still sort of new to the book industry, I'm hoping that, and like from all the readings you've been done to promote your book, I'm hoping
Mm.
it's had like an overwhelmingly positive effect.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's been received really well, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm hoping that it finds people, like, it finds readers where they're at. I don't know, like, I don't know how far the book has reached or anything like that, but I mean, that is my hope, is that, like, it finds people. But I'm really grateful just in terms of it being out in the world, because it's been, like, sort of a long road, and it almost even feels like, I don't know, like, even though I have, like, 4 books, I almost feel like it's, like, my first proper novel in a way. Like, does that make sense? Like,
Mhm.
I'm like, this is I feel still like I'm a baby writer, and I'm like, "Here's my book. Hopefully people like it." But it feels, like, I am proud of it. Like, there's parts I still cringe at that I hate, like, looking back at it and being like, "Why did I write this?" But at the same time, um I also feel like, yeah, I'm like, "Okay, I've done my best. It's here now."
I I feel like the sort of the more, I guess we'll call it non-mainstream side of the book industry is getting to a point where it's starting to welcome in like women writers who are writing things that stories that are a bit more visceral, a bit more gross and disgusting, and things that I guess wouldn't have been considered atypical feminine, say 10, 20 years ago. Are you are you getting a similar vibe?
I definitely feel like in the last couple of years there has been this rise. I mean, even in the mainstream market of like violent female narratives, even like just violent female narratives that like are just purely meant to be for shock, like not even necessarily like there's this foundational reason. You know, like in horror movies, there's always been like revenge like flicks and stuff like that. But like Titan came out and was really well received. And like there and I think like Animal by Lisa Tadeo came out. That was on a major press. Night Bitch came out by Rachel Yoder. I think that was on a major press. And so slowly, yeah, like I do see like an increase in these kinds of narratives. And in the independent world, especially like independent literature world, there are some really fucking great writers who are writing this kind of violence, like Charlene Elsby is one of them. She's prolific. She's got books coming out all the time. She has one coming out next year called Violent Faculties, which,
I think I've heard of
like,
her.
yeah, I've read Violent Faculties in like less than 24 hours. It's like a fucking pleasure to read. It's so clever. It's so good. I think that comes out next spring from Clash Books.
Yeah.
And so seeing this and seeing independent presses also pick up these like weird, like gritty kind of works it gives me like a lot of hope for independent publishing. Like people talk a lot about the mainstream industry not wanting to take on a lot of risk, but what's nice about independent publishing is that well they kind of like assume they assume this kind of risk. They publish these books, they show that there is a market for it, and I just feel like that can only be good for fiction like this. And it's stuff that's really like, you know, kind of pushing boundaries in a way, not in like just a transgressive way, but in the sense of like um I guess I like to look at the novel as this. I don't know how I look at a novel. Why did I say this? It's like, you know, an expression of like it's like, you know, it gives you an idea of like what the world could look like. You know, if human experience exists on like this spectrum from like ultimate euphoria like on one
Mm.
end to like the most horrific shit like on the other. I think there tends to be this sense that like women writers are relegated to this world of like auto fiction or chick lit or romance or
Yeah.
like Gone Girl, which Gone Girl kind of like touches on that a little bit where it's like, oh, we're not the girl boss women anymore. Um but we're still like
Yeah.
really smart and capable and like stuff like that, which is fine. Like I think there is a place for that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think we're like pushing further now and we're saying like, yeah, well this woman is like fucking horrific. And we're just going to eavesdrop on this like life for a little bit and we're not going to like make any apologies for it. And we're going to explore what that looks like in the world. And I find it just really refreshing, you know. So
Mm. Because there's this box that I feel that women are thrown into, that you have to act a certain way, and then by the same tangent, you have to write books a certain way. And I feel like that box is getting crushed right now.
yeah, yeah, I think so. And hopefully it continues to. Like seeing things that are outside of that, right? Like that mainstream norm of like what we would expect or what's marketable. Um, like there is a place like people do want to read these kinds of narratives and it's fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Bit of a shifting gears. Tell me about Witchcraft Mag.
Yeah, so it's my literary magazine, which I started in 2015 with a friend. And
Wow.
it yeah, it's been run like, I would do, like, 1 print issue a year. I think we have 8 print issues. At this point, I moved the mag online, and,
Yeah.
yeah, I like to publish things that are more in this, like, kind of dark, um, realm, you know? I mean, for me, like, when I'm
Mm.
publishing something, it's mostly like, does this, like, move me? Does this feel like a kind of does it have, like, an authentic danger in the sense that there's something that feels really vulnerable here? Um, does the language flow right? Does it keep me, like, in this fictive dream state? There's a lot I think that I look for, when I publish things. It's been on a bit of a hiatus because my life's been pretty busy for the last year and a half, but as I switch gears, with things. I'm hoping to open submissions fairly soon, but it'll be probably kind of slow going. If people are interested in submitting, there's a newsletter on the site that you can sign up for, and then I will send out information about that when we do that. So there's
Mm.
also there's a podcast in the works, which will be hosted by my friends Genevieve Jagger and Julia Fisher, and they are essentially kind of digging through the archives to pull up like past work and present it and talk about it, which I think is really special because once something's published, sometimes it's just kind of out there and people forget about it. And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the fact that they were like, let's like go through this and like find these old gems and like talk about them. I really like that concept. So that should be coming out pretty soon as well.
Yeah. Yeah. There's sort of that feeling of, and I used to run my own website where, um, and it's gone now, but there's sort of that feeling of it's out there, and but then when it comes to life gets too busy and you want to close it, you feel like it's lost forever. You know what I mean? Like you've sort of written down some notes and you've thrown it into the void, and you're never getting back that thing that you wrote down. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. I really like, as someone who writes SEO articles sort of part-time, I really admire people like yourself who have a website that um sort of puts up a very big fuck you to SEO, by doing like fiction online, like having fiction magazine online. Like I think you're doing it. There's another website called Apocalypse Confidential that doing it, and I'm just really
Oh
loving the
yeah.
rise of yeah, some of the stuff they do is just batshit crazy, but I love it. Um uh and I really like the rise in sort of like people that would probably, 10, 15 years ago would have created a zine and then just,
Mhm.
handed it out to their mates. But now it's it's gone online, which is really cool to see.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I love that too. Apocalypse Confidential is really cool. There's like Scab Magazine and Self Fuck, and I mean, there's so many really great small literary magazines out pushing it's like innovative, interesting, great prose, stuff like that. Stuff you wouldn't find right like in the Paris Review or Tin House or something. And it's wonderful to see. And
Yeah.
I think you're right about scenes where it's like it's nice to have something that is online. It's findable. It makes the world feel like a little bit smaller, being able to like access that, from anywhere in the world. Zines are really special. I do love zines. I used to make them a lot, and that was actually why I wanted my interest in starting witchcraft started was because I was like, I want to make a zine. But then I was like, okay, maybe I'll make this like an actual print,
Yeah.
like magazine. And then of course, um print has become really expensive. I moved overseas. Shipping is like insane. Like it's way too. It's just so expensive right now. So that's what makes the internet so wonderful. Is it's
Yeah.
not that expensive to share and create a platform for really fucking cool fiction and poetry. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, on a personal note, why the move from America to Glasgow?
I mean, did you get a lot of news from America in Australia? A lot of good reasons for that, but also
Oh,
just,
wow.
like, I have I had some like, I had a couple of
What part
friends
of
here.
overt white nationalism doesn't appeal to you?
Right, yeah,
Oh,
but, like,
shit.
I had some friends in I had some friends in Scotland, and I'd come over here on a book tour in, like, 2019, which I was really lucky to have,
Mm,
and I'd only got to stay in Glasgow for, like, 3 hours, but I was like, "I love this city so much, and I wanna come back here," and
yeah,
there's an amazing arts scene here. There's a lot of really good writers here. Chris Kelso, he's a sci-fi writer. Like he lives out here. He does a lot of really great curating and bringing people together. He wrote this. His book was just re-released this year called "The Black Dog Eats the City." There's a lot of really great film like, there's film festivals, there's the Edinburgh International Book Festival,
yeah,
which is out here. There's just so much art, like, there's a really great scene. And it's nice to as a person who was living in flyover country and watching, like, all the cool lit stuff happen on the coasts in America, there are so many great writers that I get to hang out with, like, all of the time, like, in person in
yeah,
Glasgow, that make living here feel, like it was the right choice. So Glasgow's like a gem. You know, I'm a bit like, does
yeah.
anybody know, like, how great this city is? Because it's pretty fucking great.
My, family's from there originally, so I need to get over there one day soon.
Yeah, yeah. Come visit. It's great.
Alright, Elle, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at sad erotica. My handle is pretty much the same everywhere, or lnash.net.
Awesome. Thanks very much for coming on My Kinda Weird, and sorry about the issues.
You're good. We made it work.
That's it, that's it. Alright, everyone, see you guys next week, but for now, Elle and I are gonna head off. Stay weird, everyone.